We'll just give it one more minute and we'll get started. Okay, I don't want to take up all of our time by waiting, so we'll get things going. So I wanted to welcome everybody again to our, I think our third virtual sessions, our set of calls for the spring. Today we have two sessions actually. So we have our first session right now, and our second session is today on buying and selling tech. I'll give you more details after that towards the end of our this first session. Today we have with us Shannon Cottrell, who is the digital photography instructor at the Fashion Institute of Design and Merchandising. And Shannon is here to speak to you about how to get the most out of your online photos to help you enhance your store's website and your web social media. She'll share with you some best practices, design insights, editing apps and tips, and everything you need to know to take great photos and build a good product storyline online. Hopefully, again, you'll leave with tons of ideas and information and resources to enhance your e-commerce experience. So I'm going to just turn it right over to Shannon, and Shannon, you can take it away, and looking forward to this.
Awesome. Thank you, Greg. Okay, let me turn on my presentation here. Okay. Good morning, everyone. Thanks so much for having me here. Stephen, let me know if this is showing up for you guys. Just want to make sure.
Yeah, you're good.
Okay, great. So like Greg said, I teach at the Fashion Institute downtown LA, and I teach product photography and photo direction, mobile photography. So in this course today, we're just going to talk about taking better photos with our iPhones and what we kind of have available to us. So I'm going to have Stephen launch a poll for you guys, because I'm really interested in what you guys are finding most challenging when you are working on your product photography. So let's see if this works.
So everybody, the poll is live. It's just up in the top right-hand corner. You should be able to grab it inside of Google Meet there. There we go. Everyone's voting.
Oh, good. It's always fun to see what everybody comes back with.
So far, it looks like our first place voter is going to be lighting, and then the second place is building a story. Oh, now we're getting into image editing. People love that editing.
All right, awesome. Well, luckily, we're going to talk a little bit about all of these, and I'm going to give you some tips for kind of making those things easier on yourself. Okay, Stephen, this is working again still. Sorry, I'm new to Google Meet, so I just want to make sure.
Yep, you're good.
Okay, so some couple facts that I found out when I was getting ready to present on this topic was that 22% of returns are because the product looked different than in the photo, and 93% of consumers consider the visual appearance to be the key deciding factor in a purchasing decision. So I think all of that really goes to show you that product photography matters, and how you present your images and your products online really make a difference in terms of the consumer. So I'm going to talk to you about a few settings within your phones. I'm focusing mostly on the iPhone. A lot of these settings are on Android and other platforms also. But I'm just going to focus on the iPhone today because it's one of the most used cameras in the world. So first, I want to talk a little bit about locking our focus and exposure within our mobile device. And then considering the rule of thirds when we're photographing. So making sure that our grid is turned on. I'll show you where to access that. And then if we're doing any kind of flat lay photography where you have products laid down and you're kind of doing like a stylized image, we want to make sure we're shooting with our level on and it's very even. And I'll show you how to line that up. So first, focus and exposure. This is a really great tool and really important when you're making images. So you can control the focus and exposure by holding down on your image until the control is activated. And then it will set up the focal point, and then that area will turn yellow. You can set your focus, and then you can adjust your exposure. So I'm going to show you a little video here of how that, hopefully this works, how you access that. So I'll press onto my subject and it will activate the tool, and then I can adjust my focus and exposure. So sometimes when we're shooting something outside or it's backlit or the camera is just deciding what exposure to shoot the image at, sometimes that can be kind of frustrating because things are getting blown out or underexposed. So this is a great tool to remember that you can use whenever you're photographing products. Also, you want to make sure that your products are sharp, so being able to lock your focus is really key. And then rule of thirds, just a general principle of photography and design. An image is divided into 9 equal parts, and the most important compositional element should be placed along these lines or their intersection. So here's an example. Here we have that when you have the grid turned on in your camera, you can see 9 equal parts of your image, and then you can weight your subject within one of those intersections. So sometimes you have to crop down depending on where your image is going to end up. So just keep in mind, leave a little bit of extra space. And then here's how you turn on your grid, because sometimes the cameras don't automatically have it on. So you'll go to your settings and go to camera, the little video here, and just turn this in composition. You just turn your grid on. So that's how you access that. Hopefully I'm not going too fast. I'm trying to get a lot of information to you guys. The other thing we want to remember is the level. So when we're shooting down on something like this, for instance, you can see the 2 crosshairs here. They're not aligned, meaning the image is kind of skewed on its plane. So we want to make sure that we're lining up those crosshairs until they turn completely yellow. And then we know our image is level. Just something to remember. Okay, a few more settings to go over. So, oops, sorry. So HDR stands for high dynamic range. You guys maybe have seen this setting on your iPhone. Maybe you know what it is. Maybe it's new to you. It's best used for landscape. What it's doing is it's capturing all the highlights and the shadows all the detail in the highlights and the shadows of an image. So I tend to turn this off for product photography. It's really best for landscape settings. And then we want to get in the habit of turning off our flash when we're shooting, because we're trying to optimize our available light. So we want to get in the habit of turning that guy off. And then formats, I'm not sure if you guys have seen, if you take a photo sometimes on the iPhone and then you try to send it or put it through an application, sometimes it's something called an HEIC file. So I'll talk a little bit more about that. We want to make sure we're shooting in the most compatible settings on our phone, which would be a JPEG. So here's the high dynamic range. It's really simple. We can just turn it on or off when we're shooting. And then want to make sure our flash is off. We can do that just by pressing the flash icon and turning that guy off. It will, usually what happens when we shoot with our flash is it kind of just washes out the image and it creates kind of an unflattering light source. So let me show you here. So HEIC stands for high efficiency image coding. It's used a lot for live photos, and I teach on something called Canvas, and I noticed that when my students upload their work and it's an HEIC file, it's not compatible. So there's a lot, it can cause a lot of discrepancies with trying to access those files. So to change your formats, you just go into settings, camera formats, and change it to most compatible. Okay. So the first thing you want to think about, we're going to talk about lighting. The best thing to do is to maximize and take stock of your environment. So I always say the best option you have for doing product photography would be natural light, either window or outdoors in open shade. The next kind of best option for modification would be directional light. So that would be something like spot or track lighting in your stores. And then the third option that has a little more limited modifications is ambient general light. So that would be more like fluorescent, recessed cove lighting. That kind of lighting is just kind of washing over your whole setting. So it's a little bit harder to modify if you were using it to take product photography. So I have another poll for you, keep you guys engaged. So I'm wondering what types of light you guys have available to you in your stores. We'll launch that poll. Stephen, I liked your update.
Oh, yeah. Okay. Well, we've got general ambient light is in the, or sorry, ambient general light is in the lead right now, and then directional light and fewer with natural light, which having visited many stores seems about right. Yep.
Yeah.
Yep. Lots of fluorescent lighting, lots of track lighting.
It's definitely a challenge. I'm going to show you a few things. So I'm expecting it's probably going to be ambient general, which just sometimes kind of creates not a great looking image, but we'll try and show you guys some ways you can combat that here. Okay, so obviously our best option is window light. Can you guys see me? Sorry, can you see me? Because I can't see anything. I can just see my presentation. Can you see me speaking?
Yes.
Okay, great. Can you see like my setup here in my frame?
Also, yes.
Okay,
if
great.
you guys want to see Shannon bigger, you can just hover over her face and click the pin to screen icon, and that'll let it take over so that you can see her in a nice big view.
Okay, great. Thank you. So, so the best way to kind of maximize window light would be to use foam core to build your own little makeshift studio. And here I have a picture of a little setup here. So I'm just using an open window as my light source, and it's indirect. There's no like, hot light source hitting the image. So that would be, if you're trying to get away from shooting the images in your in your like ambient store light, the best way would be setting something like this up. We did this at our campus store. I helped them. They're now having to sell also the supplies for classes online. So they had lots of supplies to photograph. We set up a little like makeshift studio in open shade. So the light source was behind us, but we're in kind of a shaded area. And we were able to photograph some really nice images of the supplies that way. So at least it's consistent, you know, and you're not having to battle the ambient light source. So the next thing I'm going to talk about, and I'm going to demo this for you guys. So would be directional light. I'm going to show you. Let me see, we get out of this. All right, I'm going to turn on my camera. I'm going to show you something really inexpensive you can do to photograph your products. So this is a directional light source. Let me share my other screen. New window. I'm going to share my phone so you can see this. All right. Hopefully this works. Everybody can see this image.
Yep.
Okay.
We're good.
So what I'm using here, let me grab this, is I'm just using a clamp lamp. And honestly, you could even use like a desk lamp if you had it. I'm not sure what kind of tools you guys have available to you. So, so this is my very, very inexpensive way of being able to create your own little studio. So I'm just using a clamp lamp from Home Depot, and I'm using daylight balanced light bulbs like this. And that's about it. And I'm going to show you how you can modify this light source. So let me turn on this demo here. We'll have time for Q&A at the end too, if you guys are really have some burning questions. Okay, so I've got this, my direct light source, not the prettiest light, obviously, but, and I'm gonna show you cheaply. So we've got foam core, which is inexpensive. Maybe you have it in your store already. And we've got, let me move my screen, sorry. I realized that I'm like out of frame. Okay, there we go. And then this light source is not that ideal, but we can do things like I'm using this piece of tracing paper as a piece of diffusion. So even just that has created a really nice softer light. And I'm just going to tape it over. Just be careful not to get it too close to your light source, because these lights are a little hot. So sometimes stuff can get a little too warm. Okay, so I've got that over my light source, and I'm going to lock my focus. Maybe bring my exposure up a little bit. Oops, sorry. So I've locked my focus. Bring my exposure up a tad. And then I'm gonna, maybe that's a little too much, but just so you can see, take my shot. And I'm shooting, you can even also shoot in portrait mode if you like that look, if you have that option on your camera. So then if you're still kind of not loving that, or you feel like it's a little too much shadow on one side, you can add one more piece of foam core and just kind of bring in a highlight on that side. Do you guys see that happening here?
Yeah.
So I mean, I think this whole setup maybe costs $20 or something. You know, I mean, really, at the end of the day. And you know, for smaller items, it works pretty well. If you don't have access to, you know, big lights or a decent window light. So those are a few options. You can then change this. You could have, if you wanted to change the directional light, it doesn't have to be coming off the side. You can adjust this and you could have someone hold it from above, or really any direction you want. So that's one way to get some nice, clean looking images. Cleaner. Okay. Let me see here. Let me go back to my other presentation. All right. All right, so we did the directional light with diffusion. So just using that tracing paper, anything kind of opaque over the lens or over the light. And then we filled it in with the foam core on the side, so you can kind of see the difference. Sorry, I don't have the same branded products that I did for this one. And then this was diffusion. This was directional light with diffusion all around. So if you wanted to build your own little set, you could just do fill over here, and you could have your light source coming from above, and then it kind of creates like a really soft, even light source. So a few links and kind of info on lighting tools, and I kind of built this low to high budget. So you know, if you had the budget to invest in like an LED studio light box, these are really great for even lighting. You don't have to shoot with a DSLR. You can just use your iPhone. You can handhold something, or you can get a little tripod that will hold your phone. You could use tracing paper, or you can get something like this 5-in-1 reflector with. The great thing about one of these is that the middle piece is a giant piece of diffusion, so it would work like the tracing paper. And then clamp lamps for, you know, directional light source, or you could invest in something a little more serious like LED lighting, a lighting kit. Okay, so another poll. What do you guys feel are some of the biggest issues with this image? All of the images in here are my students' work, so they're okay if I kind of put them on blast here. So I just put this image in, and I'm wondering what your feedback is on what kind of we could fix with this, or maybe what the most difficult part of this image kind of is to you guys.
So right now we are having a battle between cluttered and no main focus.
That's pretty similar, yeah, too. Yeah. I would agree. Basically, all of these issues are pretty much wrong with this image. And I think it's a good example because it's interesting. It's got a lot of stuff going on, but it's just, it's not quite pulled together enough. So this is before, and then this is kind of more styled here. I'm going to talk quickly about some little tools, other tools you could add to your toolbox for product photography. So I use this museum putty a lot. It's really great if you're doing flat lays and you have circular items, like even like this water bottle, if you're trying to do it a flat lay, sometimes it rolls, sometimes it doesn't want to stay where it is. So this stuff is museum putty. I'm sure you guys have seen this. You can kind of stick it on the back of your props. And then, how are we doing on time? I haven't even looked.
You're okay.
Okay.
We got about a half hour left.
Okay, good. Okay, good. We'll have some time for Q&A and stuff. All right. So, and then armature wire is great for bending around different things. Like sometimes you need to shape. I know that photographing hats is difficult, and different kind of clothing items. So sometimes if you need some kind of base to kind of lay your image on or lay your product on or anything like that, this armature wire works great. And then a lot of times I use fishing line. It will get photoshopped out if something's kind of hanging across, or we need to hang something or pick up a side of something. You can use fishing line. It's very easy to just retouch out. So those are some kind of like quick styling tools. And then props, I do a lot of stuff. I don't know if you guys have Dollar Tree in Canada, but I spend a lot of time sourcing stuff there for product shoots, because they have a lot of seasonal things, and I actually have some stuff that I can show you, something I just did. So you could do color paper, you could do construction paper, texture, any kind of textures are great, fabric, in terms of just like other styling tools that you might need for your product photos. And then I also had a shoot where I had to like come up with very specific colors. So I couldn't find anything that was exactly those colors. So what I did was I bought these hat boxes and spray painted the lids, the exact colors, and then used them as like pedestals and backdrops and things like that. So it's kind of fun to start building your props. So if your school has certain colors, you could maybe invest in some little risers and things like that, or make your own, obviously. And then linoleum samples are great for surfaces, and painted boxes and things like that. And then I love to incorporate human elements into our stylized flat lay photography. So whether that's photos, student work, drawings, writing, or hands, it's really fun to kind of incorporate those elements into your flat lay product photo. I think it brings it more to the personal level when you do that. So just some more going through some of these tips for flat lays. Make sure your grid is on and use your level when you're shooting above. Leave plenty of space for cropping. Try to choose a light source that's not too directly overhead in order to avoid any shadows cast from your arms or phone. Experiment with knolling, which is also the process of arranging related items in parallel, but also break things up and create organic groupings. So sometimes less is more. Don't let the star of your image get lost, and remember the rule of thirds. And once you have perfected the overhead shot, capture multiple angles, make good use of the time that you put into, construct your product photo, and then start adding things like hands and drawings and the human element. So I usually have a demo in here of flat lay. Would you guys like to see that? I just need a minute to reposition my camera. We're good on time. Okay, I think we have enough time. So if there's any questions while I'm switching this out, I can try and answer while we switch out here. Feel free to ask anything.
Anybody have any questions for Shannon?
Yeah, Becky actually asked a question in chat here. One of our challenges is counteracting yellow tones from fluorescent lights from above. Thoughts?
So that we would probably tackle in editing and trying to take out those tints in the image. Yeah, fluorescents are hard. I mean, the only thing you could really do is tackle it in the editing in post. Otherwise, you know, just taking the product completely out of that setting if it's really creating a problem. And the saturation, maybe taking their saturation down a little bit. But the best thing to do would be in the editing. It's not much you can do when you're shooting in that environment, for sure. Okay, I'm gonna reposition this guy. So I was gonna build a little flat lay for you guys. I can show you when we get to the editing where I would do that. Okay, so just using this as my tripod. So I had a shoot recently, and it was all these little like vinyl kind of toys that I didn't get much direction from the client. And it was vinyl toys that were like burger themed and French fries and soda. So I thought, well, what kind of goes with that theme? And so I went to my Dollar Tree to see what kind of supplies I could find. And I thought, well, wouldn't it be cute to do like a barbecue or like a diner type flat lay? So let me see here. I'm going to share my phone so you can see this. Okay. All right, so I'm gonna build a little diner theme for you here. So we've got, so I found some like a placemat material. So I put this, just wrapped it around. Foam core is like my best friend, if you can't tell already. So I like to build like shapes that kind of come through, but they don't have to be totally perfect. Like just a hint of the element is fun. Take these down. So I found this yellow construction paper. Thought that was cute. So we can do that. And then I found these really cute little, I might zoom out. So usually when you build this, you want to kind of be a little more pulled out because you're probably going to have to crop it. So always giving yourself a little extra space. So I'm using the museum putty because my item's not cooperating as usual. So I usually stick my museum putty just like wherever I want that thing to stay. And I can start building this stuff. Sorry, I don't have the school themed stuff, but I feel like you could use these principles. Now, I can't remember what order this goes in. My students always have to tell me. Is it spoon, knife, fork? Something like that. Somebody knows how to set a table, I'm sure.
That would not be me. I cannot help you on this.
Okay.
My standard is grab out of drawer upon need.
All right. So I got this I tried to get everything within the color palette that my clients' products were in. So I got this like burger flipper. And then I thought it'd be cute. We can add some popcorn. This is like the human element. So have fun with your styling stuff, you know, it doesn't have to be super serious. It can be playful. You can kind of be tackling a different theme. So
we had another question in chat while we're setting up here, Shannon. Any tips or tricks for shooting items like shirts, sweaters, or other articles of clothing? The wavy nature of them can sometimes be hard to stop and create more consistent shots.
The waviness, like the
I'm assuming that we're talking about, you know, like hanging it and having it move around and stuff while you're trying to take that shot and getting weird shadows being produced because fabric isn't necessarily flat.
Yes. So when I've done flat lay or off the body photos of things like t-shirts or sweatshirts or things like that, I've worked with a stylist, and what he did was, and it was really interesting, he cut out a bust from our best friend Foam Core. But this is like this is a guy that works for Vogue magazine. Like, he's serious, but he's still using foam core. So I'm telling you, it's the key. But he cut out like the shape of a bust, and then it makes it really easy to be able to pin your shirt or item to that. So like you could use very small, tiny pins in a way where you're not like seeing them in the final image, or you could just retouch them out very easily with the clone stamp tool. So that's what he did, and it was really interesting to see him work like that. So it was just foam core and very small pinning the garment like where you kind of want it to fall. Maybe you want those folds, and then you're pinning the garment to kind of you know, fall where you'd like. Otherwise, you know, on a mannequin and you're using something like what is that, tissue paper to build the form underneath. So those are my two advice for shooting clothing items.
And then in the same vein, we also have a question about shooting a t-shirt and mug together. So something that is a flatter element in the t-shirt, and then, you know, your more 3D mug. I think we're getting a good example of it actually in this photo right now with your flat lay.
Yeah. So multiple items are hard. It depends on if you're going to do a flat lay. I would probably say if you're doing something like a t-shirt with a mug, you know, I wouldn't try to have the t-shirt be like a full giant image of the t-shirt. I would probably stylize a t-shirt to kind of exist in the flat lay space, and then have the mug, and maybe do something more like this, like something more where you're telling like a little vignette story, like barbecue or back to school or you know, spring break or something. You're telling that kind of a story. If you're shooting it just like products, you know, I would probably suggest putting it on the model and then having the mug. If you're shooting it like standing up, it would be like on a form and have a mug. Or then you know, like the nice thing to do, great thing to do with product photography is get that first shot we were talking about. Get the shot where it's just a straightforward traditional product shot, get a nice image of that, and then have, you know, a few other images that tell another story about that. So maybe it's, you get the image of the mug, you get the standard image of the sweatshirt, then it's like maybe a cute flat lay stylized, and then maybe it's somebody holding the mug with the sweatshirt. And then you've got like 3 different options for that item, and you could put them, you could have the main image be your traditional portrait or traditional product picture, and then you have those 2, you know, other images that if people are interested, like, well, how does this look with other stuff, or how does this look on a body? You have those other kind of options. That's what I would suggest.
That's great. Thanks.
Yeah. So this is just a little quick example of like a fun way to kind of stylize. Stuff doesn't have to always be straight. It can just be kind of throughout the frame. And then I'm giving
Phone locked.
myself, I know.
There
Yeah.
we go. We're back.
I'm giving myself a little extra room for cropping if I need to, and then being really cognizant of that level. Do you guys see how it's lighting up? No, it's straight. So take your shot, and then we would go to edit that. I'm going to go over editing really quick. Hopefully this kind of helps. Sorry, I don't have any like stylized stuff to show you from a campus store, but I feel like you can imagine what you might want to put in this scene. It would be, I mean, you guys have so many, they make so many things now, so many products for the campus stores. It's amazing. Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing this and go back to this here. We'll get to Q&A in a minute, and then I can answer more questions. Okay, so, oops. Okay, so some just basic edit and exporting. Some apps that I really like using, just a basic phone app, editing app, or something called Lightroom Mobile. If you have access to Adobe, you can use those apps. And I also use something called Spark Post. And the most important edits would be lighting. So brightening your image, removing any distracting hues, like we were talking about with the fluorescent lights, contrast, and then aspect ratios based on where your images are going to end up. And then editing and exporting. So here's kind of a little video of some edits. So this, I think we tackle lighting, and this is in Lightroom Mobile, this app, which is really great. There's a lot of control in this application. You do have to have a Creative Cloud Adobe subscription, but it's definitely worth it if your campus is willing to invest in, you know, in getting better images for their campus store. This would be where you're taking out those fluorescent colors. So sorry, let me go. This went a little fast. So in this tint area, you're tackling the greens and the magentas. So this would be where you're kind of toggling to try to take out those hues. It's also hard if you have mixed light sources. You know, if you're having the fluorescent light with some outdoor lighting and that kind of thing. Okay, I won't let this play on and on because I'll get to your questions. And then this app is really, really great. I love this app. If you're not of the graphic design mind and you kind of want something that's already designed for you or has lots of options, this is Adobe Spark Post, and you can use this to build ads. They have tons of templates that you can use. I'll fast forward this a little bit. So you just select a template and then you can remix it with your own images and your own, text, whatever you want it to say. I'll fast forward this guy a little bit. So I'm selecting an image and then I'm gonna change my font, what my text says. You can change all the colors, you can change the type. It's a really great app. And this is called Spark Post if you're interested. You can also add your own branding. They have it linked with something called Brandify. So that's really great. Okay. All right. Questions. I feel like we might have a lot of questions or more questions, and maybe I can help answer some of those.
Sorry, we had one that was a little further up in the chat from Ida.
Okay.
Or Edda. I'm going to pronounce your name wrong, and I'm so sorry. But Shannon, is there any data that you know of on whether clothing photographed on a mannequin/human versus flat lay sell better online? So mannequin versus human, and is there proof?
I think that people want to see from all of my e-commerce knowledge. I mean, I don't know exactly like all the selling and marketing aspect, but in terms of photography, I do think that people want to see it on a person. And I know from doing fashion photography that everything gets pinned and pulled and it's always different. So it's nice to be able to really show it on maybe a few different body types is nice because, not everybody is a size 2 and, they can't all wear the same, it doesn't look the same on everybody. So I think I think in terms of just even being my own consumer, of my own things, I want to see stuff on somebody that looks kind of like my shape, and not necessarily a size 2 model. So, yeah, so I think that probably would sell a lot better. But it's nice to have those flat lay stylized things mixed in because those are really fun for your Instagram, for marketing, that kind of thing. And then on the website, having maybe a mix of people so that your consumers can see what's going on with the clothes. That's what I would suggest. It's a good question.
The other one that I see in chat right now is getting more detail out of photographic black, which is always a fun topic.
So fill in that, add your white cards, bounce your light back into that. Try and get as much lighting into that image, and then remember that you can always access your slider and try to kind of pull up your exposure on those images. Also, when you're editing, you can pull out the shadow areas. So kind of lighten those up a bit. But I think the biggest thing is when you're photographing something like a dark clothing, especially like hoodies where the light just like sucks into the fabric, try to get your exposure a little on the brighter side and edit for the shadows later. Like you don't want to shoot it too dark because it's hard to get that information back into the image.
Yeah. No, that's photographing black is always a challenge. I hate photographing gloss black. It is the bane of my existence. We had another question here from Louisa. Is there any one thing that you see as a common, easily fixable mistake in e-commerce photography? Photography.
I would say not being consistent with your point of view or your vantage point, like how you're lining stuff up. if you're going to shoot, if you want everything on your website to be, you know, cohesive, you want to be able to look at it. You want to have, you know, this mug next to this mug, and the sizes be the same, and, you know, like relatively, we don't want to see this mug be huge and then this is like really small. We're not going to understand like how those two things, how big they are next to each other. And we also don't want to like look down on this thing and then look at this from a front angle. So I think being consistent with your point of view, your angle, and then, you know, just how you're framing everything, try to keep your framing consistent, not zooming in on one thing and zooming out on something else. And if you need to show scale, you know, maybe putting, you know, maybe your first image. I know that there's a lot of people that have trouble with something that's like, maybe it's a pin or something small, and then it's next to like a plaque, and it's hard to tell on a website what that looks like. So maybe it's the first image is just your standard image. You're keeping things really consistent framing wise. And then the next image, if you scroll over it or you click on it, maybe it's something that shows more of its scale. Maybe there's a hand, maybe there's like another product that people understand is, you know, is a certain size. Like if a pin was next to this, we know, okay, well, this is a mug that's this big, kind of thing. So I think scale, perspective, that's always like really important to be consistent.
That's great. I opened a can of worms, and now you're going to get all of the shiny reflective surface questions.
Okay,
so
got
how
it.
do we photograph glossy material?
I'm prepared. Okay, so one thing is we're going to build a set that has no, that's really got like no extra reflective areas. So like I was saying, when we were building this white with the white foam core, if we were doing this for something shiny, we would, let me see, I'm just going to try to like do this real quick to show you. We would either build our set completely like a white box with nothing, you know, white foam core everywhere, your best friend. And then even foam core in the front, and just where your camera is going to be is the area that like you're going to even put foam core here. Like you're going to have foam core everywhere. Maybe your light source is coming from the top. Foam core everywhere, so that the only thing getting reflected off of it is the white foam core, and the white foam core is having light bouncing all around it. Basically what you're doing is you're just making a big white box. You can also buy something like that from, they make these, I can show you one of those. Let me just grab it real quick. They make these light studio boxes that like, so if you're really, really trying to cut it down. And then there's one other way to battle your reflections. So you can get something like this. Oh, hopefully you can see this. It's pretty big. You don't have to get one this big. I'm not sure if you guys can see this.
Oh yeah, we can see it.
Okay, but you would build this all closed. So like nothing but white is hitting your reflective object. The other option is something called a polarizing filter. So you can get these for iPhone. And what polarizing filters do is they reduce glare, and they help, like if you were shooting water and you wanted to see through into the water and, you know, it's sunny, you can use a polarizing filter to battle those reflections. So those are my two suggestions when you're trying to, reflective surfaces are tough. Keep the light real real soft if you can.
Yeah,
Try
I was
to
going to say
avoid-
heavy diffusion is also a good tool on that one
Yeah.
because
Try to avoid any hard light. Yeah.
yeah. Maybe one last question here from Caitlin
Sure.
is: do you have any recommendations for at-home gel filters to go over lights?
Oh, that's a fun question. That's a great question. So Caitlin is talking about like creating. Are you talking about creating color, like colorful light?
Yeah, let's go with colorful lights as opposed
Okay.
to just our friend daylight. Let's go with something a little bit crazier.
So, yeah. Well, it's fun for like, okay, so here's an example. So you could spend the money to buy these things are color gels, and what they are just, translucent colors that you can put over light sources, or you can be resourceful. What do you have around the house that's like, this is a file folder that's pink. If I shoot light through this, it's going to be pink. It's going to be pink light. So if you have anything that is translucent and colorful, you could totally use this as, some gel to add lights. Same goes for like the question about the fluorescence. Maybe you're lighting it with one of these clamp lamps. You could try to match the fluorescent color with a gel, and then when you go to edit, you just take out that color. I don't know if that makes sense. It's kind of a little more
We are getting
technical.
deeper and deeper into Photoshop and Lightroom all of a sudden. But I don't see any other questions. If you guys, if people do have more questions, can they reach out to you?
Yeah, of course.
What's a good way to get a hold of you?
I can put let me put my email in this chat here, and you guys can. Let me make sure I spelled it all right. Yeah, just let me know if there's any other things you're curious about. Hopefully I can point you in the right direction, but I hope there's some tools you can use for your stores, and just kind of working on making better images. And thanks for having me. I don't know if there's anything else you need.
Thanks so much, Shannon. I really appreciate you doing this. This is great. I know I was trying to follow along on my phone, especially the settings and playing around while you're talking.
Oh, good. Good.
No, it was all good information. And for those of you who are interested, Shannon's also, if you're a NACS member, NACS also has a presentation on June 4th at 11 Eastern with Shannon speaking. So it's kind of another step to this presentation. And maybe if there's interest, we can maybe think about bringing you back, Shannon, for maybe that session here as well.
Yeah,
so
that's
great. We
Yeah,
can look at for sure. So again, thanks everybody for joining us today. We do have another session in 1 hour, which is all about buying and selling tech. So if you want to join us for that session, you're welcome to do so. Again, this is about discussing some of the new products and gadgets that might be out there on the tech side of things. Can also have a discussion on institutional sales as well, if that's of interest to you. And if not, maybe there's somebody in your store that might be better fit for that. Just let them know that we're having that discussion. So thanks everybody, and we will hopefully see you guys back in an hour. Other than that, thanks again, Shannon. Appreciate your time.
Yeah, thank you so much, Shannon.
Yeah, that was awesome. Thank you. Thanks, Louisa, for having me.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, Shannon. That was awesome.
All right. I'll talk to you guys later.
Thanks.
Good
Bye.
luck. Bye.
Steve, you can pause recording.